Under this government, Canada is the only country to have driven this economy into a recession. The Prime Minister is the only Prime Minister of any G20 economy to have done that. Growth has declined in 3 of the last 4 quarters, and today's data makes clear that it's certainly worse than the government has been broadcasting. The Parliamentary Budget Officer today released the latest economic and fiscal outlook, and the findings are certainly damning. The PBO slashed its growth forecast to just 1.1% this year and 1.6% next year, and that doesn't account for the most recent recession data. Scotiabank forecasts that Canada will be at 0.8% growth this year, less than half of the 1.9% projected for the United States, and BMO even more pessimistic today at just 0.5%. I think today the PBO put it very plainly that the labour market has softened, that businesses are postponing expansion plans because of the uncertainty that exists here, and that's not really an abstract finding. Those are real jobs that aren't being created and real investments that aren't being made in Canada. Stats Canada confirmed that labour productivity fell to 1.5% in the first quarter, and that's after a decline of the quarter before. And productivity has now dropped in 3 of the 4 last quarters, and that's since the Prime Minister has taken office. 10 of the 16 industry sectors declined, with construction and agriculture leading all the way down, and then Canadian workers are also producing less, meaning that Canadians are making less, and that is a very simple finding, unfortunately, from the PBO this morning. And all of that, meanwhile, while the Prime Minister is telling Canadians that he is cutting costs in the public service, and today we see the PBO disagree with all of that. Personal expenses are projected to grow from $69.2 billion to $86 billion by 2030, 2031. And despite promising to borrow $65 billion this year in the spring economic statement, which we certainly just had, the government is on track to borrow $72 billion. That's a $7 billion overrun that was found today. Canadians certainly deserve a government that manages their money like it matters and not use Canadians as a credit card to bolster programs which don't work and Canadians don't need. And this, again, is the only Prime Minister to have driven our economy, the Canadian economy, the only economy in the G7 into a recession. I want to also address the Liberals unveiling their AI strategy this morning in Toronto with what seemingly is very lofty goals, but no plan to deliver on that. Very short on details, a very ambitious plan which lacks a lot of details that I think Canadians have been waiting for a very long time. Canada was the first country in 2017 to put forward an AI strategy, and 9 years later, we see that strategy certainly hasn't worked. It certainly hasn't led to adoption. In fact, we're still waiting, I think, in some cases, for the outcomes of that. I want to talk for a second about what Canadians are talking about at kitchen tables and boardroom tables, and what this strategy lacks. Privacy, first and foremost, and the safety and the security that was promised in this is nowhere to be found in the document. Certainly no details, and I think that Canadians at kitchen tables and boardroom tables are concerned about the increased invasion into Canadian privacy with not only this AI strategy and what it will bring, but what we see in the House of Commons currently. On one hand, the Prime Minister says that AI puts Canadians' privacy under threat, or he said today that Canadian privacy was under threat. And of course it is. It's under threat by this very government. This government that's promising consumer privacy legislation, but it's putting privacy at risk with bills like C-22, the lawful access bill that's still running through the House, C-8, the cybersecurity amending the Telecommunications Act, which we've seen a number of organizations raise privacy concerns, certainly a number of members in this House and from our side raise privacy concerns on, Bill C-11, Bill C-18, Bill C-9, 9, all with privacy concerns. In fact, the government doing a full reversal on taxing Canadians because their legislation doesn't work, so an admission. We also have deep concerns about the unemployment that already exists, youth unemployment at 15%, 442,000 youth are out of work, and that's the largest number since the Great Recession. We don't believe the Liberals when they say that they'll create 90,000 jobs when we have lost more than 112,000 jobs just since January in this country. Again, no details in this plan, not a whole lot to digest. On the issue of sovereignty, we'll support expanding certainly Canadian sovereignty in computing, and we believe that that we should keep that intellectual property in Canada. But today's plan again lacks any kind of detail on how to get there. And then I think that we should talk about the elephant in the room that I think the Prime Minister certainly was excited about, and that's the ability to power our future, to build the data centers. We currently have enough energy to power ourselves for a generation and displace much of the energy in the world that that some of the dictators and despots are using to fuel their own wars. And we haven't done anything to unlock that energy. In fact, the Prime Minister gave himself powers with C5 to overstep his own legislation, but that legislation is still in place. We have Bill C-69, we have a tanker ban, an oil and gas cap, an industrial carbon tax, which makes the climate for investment here in energy, the same investment that's going to need to power our future in AI at risk. We certainly have issues on bringing forward a plan that's going to attract the kind of investment that the Prime Minister is going to attract, and we have concerns about him matching that investment with with no details in the numbers, and certainly using a sovereign debt fund, which again he has given Canadians no details about. So I think today's announcement was a lot of fanfare, short on details, and a lot of hollow words from a podium. And I think Canadians are expecting real answers on safety, on security, on privacy, and on the future of AI in this country. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Gabriel, and then we'll take some questions.
Thank you. Bonjour tout le monde, j'espère que ça va bien. Switch le micro. Alors ça, c'est notre situation présentement. La réalité, c'est que le Canada est en récession. On est le seul pays du G20 en récession. Je sais que pour certains, ils vont nous dire « Non, non, mais c'est technique », mais la récession est bien réelle. Notre économie est en déclin dans 3 des 4 derniers trimestres depuis l'arrivée de M. Carney. Il y a plusieurs données qui montrent encore pire dans les prochains mois. Donc, aujourd'hui c'est sorti, le nouveau fonds de dette souveraine va coûter 750 millions seulement en intérêts par année aux contribuables. La croissance économique va être de moins de 0,5 % en 2026. Le premier ministre a promis de dépenser moins, mais les dépenses des fonctionnaires ont monté de 24 %. Le premier ministre a promis de réduire le déficit en proportion de l'économie, mais le directeur parlementaire du budget nous dit qu'il y a seulement 1 % des chances que ça arrive. On a perdu 112 000 emplois depuis le début de l'année. 45 000 nouvelles personnes se cherchent maintenant un emploi au Canada. Pire encore, le premier ministre a promis de mieux contrôler la dette, mais le directeur parlementaire du budget nous dit que la dette va seulement augmenter. Alors ça, c'est le résultat des mauvaises gestions libérales des derniers mois par notre premier ministre, mais maintenant pour l'annonce d'aujourd'hui. Alors le premier ministre aujourd'hui nous a parlé de sécurité des données. Bien, notre réaction est assez simple, en fait, c'est qu'ils sont très, très mal placés pour parler de sécurité des données personnelles quand les libéraux sont ceux qui veulent les attaquer le plus. On l'a vu avec C8, C9, C22. Il n'y a eu aucune clarification non plus sur la stratégie, comment les Québécois et les Canadiens vont être protégés de la dérive de l'intelligence artificielle. En plus, aujourd'hui, il n'y a eu aucune réponse sur comment les libéraux vont être capables de fournir l'énergie. Donc, ils nous parlent de créer des centres de données. Mais là, c'est assez simple. Si tu veux créer des centres de données, ça va prendre de l'énergie pour les fournir, ces centres-là. Et si tu as une offre constante et plus de demandes, bien, le prix augmente pour quelqu'un. Alors, est-ce que le prix va augmenter pour les entreprises qui vont devoir payer leur électricité plus cher? Si oui, est-ce qu'on va rester concurrentiel? Puis si de l'autre côté, c'est les citoyens qui doivent payer, ça peut être le temps que les libéraux leur disent. Alors, c'est assez simple. Aujourd'hui, on a besoin d'une économie qui est plus forte. On a besoin de développer nos ressources pour s'enrichir collectivement. On a besoin de développer notre secteur énergétique si on veut rentrer dans cette nouvelle annonce-là d'intelligence artificielle. On a besoin d'attirer les investisseurs étrangers qui, présentement, fuient le pays parce qu'il y a trop de contraintes. Alors, aujourd'hui, encore une fois, c'était des belles annonces libérales avec de la belle poudre aux yeux sur aucun fondement. Et on a vraiment hâte de voir la structure derrière pour être capable d'avancer comme pays. Merci beaucoup.
Sur l'intelligence artificielle, M. Hardy, juste par rapport à la stratégie sur l'intelligence artificielle,
oui.
Le gouvernement nous dit qu'on va être capable de générer des dizaines de milliers d'emplois, des milliards en retombées possibles. Est-ce que vous pensez que c'est réaliste?
Mais en fait, le fondement de cette question-là, c'est est-ce qu'on est capable de fournir l'énergie pour créer les centres de données qui vont nous permettre de rentrer dans cette ère d'intelligence artificielle-là. Et donc, c'est bien beau de dire on va créer des emplois et tout ça, mais comment on va mettre de l'énergie dans un centre de données? Il n'y a personne qui répond. Puis encore une fois, c'est simple, c'est des mathématiques, là. Offre égale, la demande augmente, le prix augmente. Mais ils ne veulent pas adresser cette question-là. Donc, moi, je pense que le fondement même de leur projet présentement, il est vraiment à risque.
How can the government ensure that working-class jobs and middle-class jobs are not lost because of AI?
Well, look, this is one of the big issues that we've spoken as a party. We need to ensure that AI adoption happens in Canada in a responsible way, and that means not replacing jobs, but being additional in terms of supporting jobs, supporting more productivity. On the question of job creation on AI, we're obviously skeptical about the government's claims about creating thousands and thousands and thousands of more jobs when we have a government that has just posted 112 job losses since January, a youth unemployment of almost 15%, and 442,000 youth out of work. We know that AI targets those jobs, particularly of young people, the ones that are getting into the market. So we've got to make sure that we give them the tools required to overcome that, and from their perspective, get into a job market where their productivity can be enhanced with AI and not replaced by AI.
The government plans to educate or train 3,000 educators to provide training and education for young people. Do you believe that program could be an element that helps solve the youth unemployment crisis?
Well, first off, I think we need to see details of that program. And again, today's strategy has no details. If that program is hiring liberal insiders for contracts to teach about AI adoption. Well, we've seen that before. We've seen that in the small business plan that they once announced in this place, and we saw that it was a number of consultants getting rich. There are some things that we'll look at closely in the document, and once the government gives details on those documents, I think training for AI is important, but the devil will be in the details about how that's going to be done, who's going to do it, and who pays for it.
What do you make of the very brief mention of how the strategy will combat AI deepfakes?
Well, you said it yourself in your question. There's very little details here on privacy, on safety, on security, on how to keep kids safe. This is a government that's hung its hat for the last year. And the reason that you see this strategy today is not because they were ready with some grand plan on AI. It's because the document leaked and they were forced to announce something. Again, there is no details in this strategy about privacy, about security, about how to keep Canadians safe. We look forward to seeing those details, but if the government's past behavior or the government's future behavior is predicated on its past behavior, we're not optimistic about security and privacy here.
Do you trust AI? Like, do you trust AI? Do you hear about AI when you speak to people? And like, what is it? Where do you stand on this?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I live in this world. AI is here. AI adoption is here. AI is in I think lots of daily activities that Canadians partake in. I certainly use it in my day-to-day life. What we're talking about here is a strategy without details for adoption after 9 years of getting nowhere with it. So, if you're asking me if I use AI, then yeah, but we've got to put the guardrails in place so that Canadians feel protected, they feel safe, and their security and their privacy is protected. And given this government's track record on that, again, not so optimistic.
How far should the government go on that?
Do in terms of guardrails? They've said they're going to put some of this into the upcoming online harms and privacy legislation.
Well, look, the online harms. If the online harms legislation is anything like the last bill C-63, which was announced in this House, it is virtually unsupportable. It is unsupportable by civil society, by Canadians, by members of this House. So we certainly don't want to see that. Canadians' privacy is at risk. The Prime Minister said it today. And Canadians' privacy is at risk is because of this government's action, because of this bill. And you see them walking things back. You're probably not going to see C-22 move through the House because of Canadians from all walks of life who have raised concerns about this government's disrespect for Canadians' privacy or incursion into Canadian privacy. We want AI developed in a way that supports workers, that supports people, and that doesn't replace them, that adds to their productivity, that doesn't replace the jobs of today. And certainly, we have deep concerns on this government's record on jobs, on youth unemployment, and where they are at today. So thanks very much.